secretory phase. So in the secretory phase, the endometrium which is formed, okay, will wait or will become like a bed on which the if the implantation is happening, so the implantation will happen in the endometrium. Okay, so for 14 days, right from the day of ovulation till the day of next menstruation, the endometrium will wait so that there can be implantation possible. Okay, so it will work as a bed for the implantation to become possible. Okay, so that is the uterine cycle. Now what is happening to the ovarian cycle, or what is happening in the ovaries? So uh, in the ovaries, right from your menstruation, means the day of menstruation, your ovaries will again start to make another ovum. Okay, so the primary oocyte, as you can see in this image, okay, the primordial follicle, okay, that are the primary oocytes, will convert to a mature Graafian follicle which releases the ovum. Okay, so that process, the process of formation of Graafian follicle or a matured, we also term it as the tertiary oocyte or a matured oocyte, that process is the follicular phase, and that happens under the influence of the FSH hormones, okay, which triggers, FSH is follicular stimulating hormone, which are being secreted from the anterior pituitary, which triggers the ovary to shed out the which triggers the ovary to form an matured ovum. Okay, so under the influence of FSH, the ovaries will form the Graafian follicle. The Graafian follicle, once formed, okay, will mature till the date of ovulation. So during the time of ovulation, the luteinizing hormone, there will be a luteinizing hormone surge, means the LH hormone will increase suddenly, and that will lead to secretion of, that will lead to rupturing of Graafian follicle, and the ovum will be released. Okay, ovum will be released outside the ovaries. Okay, so that the ovum is then being absorbed by the by the fimbriae or the ampules of the fallopian tube, and will come and reside in the fallopian tube. Now the Graafian follicle, so post ovulation comes the luteal phase. In the luteal phase, the Graafian follicles gets converted to corpus luteum, and start the production of estrogen, sorry, progesterone, and it will wait till 14 days. If the maturation of the ovum is happening, I mean the fertilization of ovum is happening due to a sperm, then the corpus luteum, the progesterone which has been the corpus luteum which has been formed will provide the progesterone to support the early pregnancies and to avoid the unwanted uterine contractions. Okay, but if the conception has not happened, then the corpus luteum will shed on the 28th day, and you will enter your menstrual cycle again. So this happens every month. A female undergoes menstruation every month. Okay, and this cycle happens every month under the influence of hormones. Okay, so now the point we are going to discuss today is, what do we mean by menstrual hygiene? Okay, what do we mean by menstrual hygiene? So menstrual hygiene or menstrual hygiene management means the women and the adolescent girl using a clean menstrual management material to absorb or collect the blood that can be changed in privacy, often as necessary for often as necessary for the duration of menstruation period, using soap and water for washing the body as required, and having access to facilities to dispose of the used menstrual management materials. Okay, so this is the definition according to the Swedish Sanitary Society, right? So when we say menstrual hygiene, that means maintaining a clean, or using a clean method to collect the blood, and then disposal of these clean method disposal of these method. Okay, so that everything right from the product to the disposal is coming under the menstrual hygiene. Now I feel that we are talking a lot on the product, we are talking a lot on what should be used, how should be used, when should be used, but we are lacking in discussing about how should we dispose of these materials. Okay, so uh, being a female or being a human being, it's our right to understand, and it's a responsibility to understand that whatever products we are using to maintain our hygiene, it's important that those products can get disposed of properly. Because if they are not getting disposed of properly, then you are harming your environment, you are disturbing your ecosystem. Okay, so I'm just going to share you few things about menstrual hygiene and the products which are being used. But before that, I would like to tell you that every female, I mean the average number of cycle, menstrual cycle a female can undergo throughout her life cycle is almost around 459 cycles. Okay, so a female can have 459 cycles in her life, like average, if we are considering that she menstruates from 11 until 40. So the number might vary, but yeah, on an average we go for 459 cycles in a lifetime, right? And in one cycle, okay, the number of waste a female, a menstrual waste a female can generate throughout her periodic cycle, means throughout her reproductive age group, is almost 120 kilograms. So we are generating the biomedical waste or the sanitary waste. A female, like if I talk about myself, then I have a capacity to generate 120 kgs of menstrual waste or sanitary waste. Okay, which if not disposed properly, then can affect not only the ecosystem but the people who are associated with uh, waste management. Okay, so let us see what are the different ways. Now when we talk about hygiene, it's like we should know ourselves that how shall we maintain our personal hygiene, right? So whenever we are using the different ways to maintain a menstrual hygiene, so it is like first and the foremost thing is you need to stick to one method and use the same brand. What do I mean by that? So that means whatever method you are using, maybe you might be using sentry napkins, maybe you might be using tampons or menstrual cups or discs. Okay, so whatever you are using, or cloth, so stick to that method. Don't change your product every now and then, and use the same brand. Why is that necessary? Because say for example, if you are using a sentry napkin of X company and you are using it since last 2 3 years, okay, and now you directly shift to the Y company, there are chances that your body is used to the previous menstrual product. Okay, and if you are shifting it, then you are your body might not be able to adjust to it properly, or it you might have certain other types of infections or body rashes. Okay, so that is like you stick to one method and the same brand. The second thing is you need to change regularly. I mean, what do I mean by that? If you are using a sentry pad, you need to change it every 3 to 4 hours despite of your flow. So it's not so that if I'm on my fourth day of menstruation and I'm not shedding, that means, or I'm not bleeding, that means I can use the sentry pad for 12 long hours or for 24 hours. Okay, why? Because the pad, when you are keeping there for a longer period of time, it would absorb the sweat as well. And if you are, and that pad, the moistured pad, can become a potential source of infection. Okay, a potential source of infection. So you need to change it. Though you have a light pad, you need to change your regular pad regularly every 3 pad. The next thing is, supposingly you are using a tampon. So again, a tampon should be changed 3 to 4 hours, and the tampon which you use should be of a low absorption capacity. Why do I say a low absorption capacity? Because the most common side effect of using of a tampon is toxic shock syndrome. So when I say toxic shock syndrome, that means what do the tampon do? So it works as a mucus plug block your vaginal outflow. Okay, so the when it blocks the vaginal outflow, what does it do? It will not allow the bleeding to come out, it will absorb the bleed. Okay, and that the blood once shedded becomes a potential source of infection. So the blood along with the tampon material, it interacts and it can go, and a female can have an toxic shock syndrome. Okay, so the tampon which you are using, don't use of a high absorption rate, use of a low absorption rate. Because high absorption rate you are using and you are not aware that whether it has been fully used up, or it is and you keep it for more than 5 6 hours of time, then you are becoming more prone to develop this toxic shock syndrome. Okay, say for example you are using the menstrual cups. So now the menstrual cups, they are a very good alternatives to sanitary napkins and to tampons, because they are being made up of silicone, which is uh, adjustable with the body. I mean the silicone which is not reactable to your skin, or it is not reactable to your body. And the menstrual cup, its life or its storage capacity is of 10 to 12 hours. But again I will suggest, so you can use a menstrual cup for 10 to 12 hours. But again I will suggest that if you are using a menstrual cup for the first time, don't use it more than 4 to 5 hours at a stretch. Okay, why? Because you are using it for first time, you don't know whether you have inserted it properly or not. You don't know whether how your body is going to react it. So till the time you don't understand its usability, use it only for 4 to 5 hours. Once you are understanding its capacity, once you are understanding its usability, you can increase it to 10 to 12 hours. Same is with the menstrual discs. Okay, so the I will explain all these products to you, but the point over here is whatever you are using, whichever protection method you are using, you need to change it every now and then. I mean every 3 to 4 hours regularly. I'm not talking during the sleeping hours, I'm talking during the working hours. Okay, then the third point is wash regularly and in a proper way. What do I mean by wash regularly and in a proper way? So that means you need to maintain your vaginal hygiene as well, your perineal hygiene as well. So whenever you are using, I mean whenever you are going to change, supposingly you wore a pad at 9 o'clock and now at 1 o'clock or 12:30 you need to change it. So whenever you are going to change it, the first thing you do is maintain a proper hand hygiene. Hand hygiene, okay, then remove your sanitary pad. Okay, then clean your perineal area, clean your vaginal area. Now how to clean your vaginal area? So first and the foremost thing is clean your vulva. Okay, if supposingly this is your vulva, clean the vulva first. If you have hair on the vulva, then there are chances that the bleed might stick on your hair, and the hair can become, and that can, at that point of time you clean your vulvar hair, you clean your vulva with soap. If supposingly you are traveling and if you don't have soap, then you can use a wet wipe which is not having alcohol. So you can use an alcohol free wet wipe, the one which we use for baby, for cleaning the perineum of the baby, the alcohol free wet wipes. Okay, or the wet wipes which has a neutral pH. So you can clean your vulva. I'm repeating the word vulva, we are not yet opened the vulva. Okay, so clean it properly. Then when you need to clean the perineal area, so keep one thing for sure, that clean from front to back. Front to back. What do you mean by clean from front to back is, first clean your perineal opening, and first clean your vaginal opening, and then clean the anal opening. Don't go from anus to vagina. Always go from vagina to anus. If you are going from anus to vagina, means you are bringing the anal infection towards your vaginal inlet. Okay. The third thing is, don't clean the vagina from inside. Now many females, they have, vagina is a self cleaning organ. Okay, you don't have to insert your finger in and clean it. Okay, it will automatically clean itself. The vaginal discharge is its cleaning process, so let it get cleaned itself. Don't clean it with your fingers penetrating inside. Okay, that should be avoided. And don't use any of the vaginal hygiene products. Okay, don't use any washing agents, or during your menstruation especially, because during menstruation your flora is prone your normal flora is prone to is more prone to these types of weave wash or any other. I'm not telling about any particular company, but yeah, any company products or detergents or soaps, don't use them during menstruation, especially to clean your vaginal surface or vaginal area or vestibular area. Okay, that would rather harm your flora, the normal flora, and will initiate the process of infection. So every 3 to 4 hours, whenever you are cleaning or whenever you are changing your menstrual product, try to clean your perineum. So that will help in reducing the odor. Many females, they complain that they have a they have odor, or they have foul smell coming when they go for during their menstruation. So why that happens? Because sometimes we don't clean our private area properly. Okay, so that is the third point. The fourth point is, as I said, don't use soaps or vaginal hygiene products, because they can actually harm your normal vaginal floras. Okay, so don't use the normal soap and vaginal hygiene products. Then the fourth point is, avoid the pad rashes. Okay, so what can you do to the chafing of the thigh? Okay, many females, they complain that when they use pad or pads, they have rashes, irritation on their thigh. So what can you do is, check whether the product you are using is friendly to your skin or not. Okay, many times the females who use the wings, the sentry pad with the wings, that wings, they cause the irritation. Okay, or using the same protective product for longer time can cause the irritation. So you, during your menstruation, try to use some antiseptic and antifungal powders, or antiseptic and antifungal cream over your inner thigh. So that will prevent the fungal formation or the um, fungus infection there, and it will also prevent the chafing or the rashing of your skins, the adductors and the thighs. Okay, third is, use only one method, or sorry, not third, the sixth point is, use only one method of cleaning. In the sense, I have seen many females doing that. If they are having a heavy flow and if they are working, they will keep two pads instead of one. So that is a complete no no. Or they will use a tampon and a pad. Okay, so that is a complete no no. Don't do that. Okay, you either use a XL or double XL century napkin, or you frequently change your century napkin. Don't use the two methods to keep yourself dry, because that increases the risk of infection. Okay, that increases the risk of inflammation over that area. if see what happens if supposingly today is my heavy flow day. Now every female, she would know, if she has a normal menstrual cycle, she will know that when she has a heavy flow and when she has a light flow. Okay, so if you are having a heavy flow, okay, so on that period of time, if you are using two methods, so what you are doing, you are avoiding your body signal. I mean to say that if I'm using two pads and I'm keeping myself dry, then I'm trying to avoid, or I am trying to stretch the time between the changes. And the remember one thing, once the blood leaves your body, once the blood leaves your body, it becomes a potential source of infection. Okay, it becomes a potential source of infection, and it can also affect your normal flora. So don't do that. Okay, use only one method, change it regularly. Have bath regularly. Now why have I kept have bath regularly? You might feel that, oh, it is a common sense, who won't take a bath? But no, in many cultures, I mean, they still practice it. The menstruating female is not allowed to take bath. Okay, so because they consider that if you take bath, that means you are soiling the water, you are soiling the bathroom. Okay, so that is a cultural taboo prevalent at least in certain parts of India. Fine, so avoid that. uh, why I would, sorry, going out track of the topic, but why have we kept this session open for both male and female? Because it is necessary for a female to understand her hygiene, but it is more important and necessary for a male to support a female during these days. Okay, many of the males, like you might be having your mothers, your sisters, or your wives or your daughters who might be in the phase of reproduction, in the menstrual phase. So if you can understand the process of menstruation, the process of maintaining hygiene, the process of supporting the female, or if you can guide your sister, or you can guide your wife, or you can guide your mother to pick a proper method of sanitization, then you are adding, you are making her life of a better quality. Okay, yeah. So because improper hygiene, maintaining an improper personal hygiene is a risk to myself, okay, and a risk to the ecosystem as well. Fine, so keep bath, have bath regularly. Then keep, when if you are traveling and if you are menstruating, keep extra pads with you. Don't think that I can keep some only of less quantity, and if required then I'll buy from the shops available. Don't do that. Keep extra things with you in your bags. Okay, maintain proper health and hygiene. And disposal, the most important thing is disposal of the sanitary products. Okay, so disposal we will discuss in further detail, but before that, I would just like to show you what different types of menstrual products are. So if we see how did the menstrual products evolved. So in the past, like our ancestors, you might be heard that they were using cloth to have their proper menstrual hygiene. So cotton cloth, cotton wool, okay, maybe ash, or maybe wooden ash, okay, or maybe leaves, banana leaves, okay, maybe soil. So all these things were used initially to maintain the to as in menstrual product. After that came, there was an era of cloth, proper cloth, and then there was an era of sanitary napkins. Now sanitary napkins are also of two types nowadays which are available. One are disposable sanitary napkins, and another are the reusable sanitary napkins. Now disposable and reusable, again in disposable there are two types. One is the organic sanitary napkins, and another are the inorganic sanitary napkins. Okay, so when I say the organic sanitary napkins, or biodegradable sanitary napkins, they are those which are made by 100% cotton, or water hyacinth, or water sponge, or banana leaf. Okay, so there are various companies which are producing this 100% organic napkins, and they claim that these organic napkins or these sanitary napkins, they are 100% biodegradable. Okay, so I will repeat, they are being made by the banana leaf, 100% cotton, water hyacinth or water sponge. Okay. The other category is the non biodegradable. So non biodegradable, when I say, what do we mean by non biodegradable? uh, Hygiene or non-biodegradable sanitary pads. So can anyone write in the chat that what are the constitution of a non-biodegradable sanitary napkins, and how long does a sanitary napkin take to decompose itself? Can anyone quickly write in the chat box? Come on, any one of you. You can write in the chat box that how long does a what is the component constitution of a sanitary napkin, non biodegradable one, and how long does it takes to degrade itself or decompose itself. Okay, no problem, let me answer then. When we say the non disposable, sorry, when we say the non biodegradable, okay, so the layers, the sanitary napkin layers, the first layer is made by the perforated polyethylene. Now polyethylene, when we say, it is not biodegradable. Polyethylene is a polymer which is not biodegradable. That means it is not going to degrade itself, it is not going to decompose itself. Okay, and there are researches which are showing that a single sanitary napkin, okay, an inorganic or a non biodegradable sanitary napkin can take 500 to 800 years to decompose itself. Okay, it can take 500 to 800 years to decompose itself. So you can just imagine that if I'm using it in 2020, when will it decompose itself? Okay, and another problem with sanitary napkins is, if the female is using it and if she is throwing it without proper without using a proper disposal method, then the blood stuck in the sanitary napkin, when picked by the raggers, the rag pickers, or the people who are maintaining the menstrual waste. Okay, so there are chances that those people, they might end up into staphylococci infection or hepatitis infection or streptococci infection. Okay, and this sanitary napkin, when disposed of, when disposed of, it makes the soil infertile. Okay, so the soil infertility can also take place because of the disposal. Okay, the next are the reusable or the cloth. Now initially when I was small, we were not you having this type of reusable cloth. Rather, we used to have a homemade cloth, but now there are reusable cloth. So only thing in reusable cloth is you need to make the girl understand that she has to wash the reusable cloth properly. Now how to wash it? Wash it with warm water, wash it with detergent, and make sure that there is no water or detergent or blood stain prevalent on the cotton pad, okay, or the reusable pad. And the most important thing is, dry it under the sunlight. Now what people do in rural areas, they use the cotton cloth and then they dry it into a shady area or a shabby area of the house, because they females, they are not, they think that it is not a good thing if person comes to know that I'm menstruating, and they will avoid drying the cloth outside. Okay, so here comes the awareness of a male. Okay, if you can support your female colleagues, or if you can support your daughter, your sister who is younger to you, and who has not yet attained her adolescent age group, who cannot use the invasive or the tampons or cups inside and she wants to use the reusable cloth, then let her dry those in the sun area, in the sunny area. It should not be covered under the towel. Okay, people do that, and covering under the towel, what you are doing is you are not allowing the cloth to dry. Moreover, the sun rays which fall on the cloth, they work as a antibacterial. They have an antibacterial effect and antibiotic effect. Okay, so they would kill the remaining residual bacteria and they will sterilize the cloth. But hanging or drying them beneath the towel is not going to solve the purpose, and that is the reason why cloth or why reusable sanitary napkins are considered to be the unhygienic one. But if you follow a proper washing method, if you follow proper drying method, and if you educate the girl, then it can be a good source. It can be a reusable one. Okay, the next are the tampons, as we said. Okay, so the tampons, again, the tampons, they are being made up of um, cellulose, wood pulp cellulose or the rayons. Okay, and they also take more than 500 years to decompose themselves. Plus tampons, they have a potential side effect of toxic shock syndrome. Okay, the next things are the menstrual cups and the menstrual discs. Okay, so the menstrual cups, if you use of a good quality, they are made by silicone and they have a life of 10 years. 10 years means you can use the same cup for 10 years. So it is a good source, it is a good alternative to using for using a sanitary napkin or a tampon. You can use the same cup for 10 long years depending upon how you are maintaining the cup, how you are washing it, and what quality cup you are using. Same is with the menstrual discs. Okay, menstrual discs, like if my daughter is 11 years old or 12 years old and she has just started menstruation, then can I advise her for a invasive or a device which needs to be put inside? So the answer is no. Why no? The answer is not no because of the hymen or because of the virginity. The answer is no because the 11 or 12 years old girl is still having changes in her body. Okay, her organs are very delicate, they are still developing. So at that point of time, and she will be very much, it would be a psychological trauma if you ask her to insert something inside. Okay, her tissues, her organs, they are not that ready for penetration to happen. So in that case, you can ask her to use a reusable cloth, or an, if not reusable, if you don't want your daughter to wash the cloth, then you can ask her to use a organic sanitary napkin in normal flora. Okay, so we have different types of I would not name any of the sanitary products, but we have different companies which are offering gel as well as fragrant sanitary napkins, but they actually harm your normal flora, and they actually, post menstruation, they increase the foul smell and odor coming. So never use those. If you want to use the disposable one, there are options available for the organic as well, which are been made by banana leaves or by water sponge or by water hyacinth. So you can use the alternative of organic rather than the uh, uh, disposable, I mean non organic, in a female who is in her puberty age, I mean who is not yet adult. Okay, but once she is adult, once she is 21 or above, then you can actually ask her to go for any of the invasive uh, methods like menstrual cups or menstrual discs, because it's not so that using these products will affect her virginity, or using these products will cause her any problem. Okay, the only thing we are worried is about the hymen. So now let me tell you, hymen is not a there are lot many things going in the mind, like hymen should not be broken before marriage, or it shows the virginity. Presence or absence of hymen does not show that you are virgin or not. Hymen is just a thin, mashy capillary layer which actually does not have nerve supply, or even if it has minimal nerve supply. So breakage of the hymen is not going to give you pain or excessive discomfort, okay, because it has minimal nerve supply or almost no nerve supply, but it has good vascularity, okay. So if you are using any tampon or any menstrual cups or pads, discs, that means you are not breaking the virginity. Rather, you are just yeah, the hymen which we talk, it is just up to the cultural, we respect the culture, and depending upon the culture you can ask her to use it, but it's completely safe to use once all her organs are fully developed, okay. But don't if your daughter is young, or if your sister is young, like almost she just reached her puberty, then it's better to use a non-invasive one, okay. After 21, 22 years, once she is in college, she, according to her need, according to her wish, she can use any of the products which are available. Now the thing which we, other than I think that when we discuss about hygiene, menstrual hygiene, or when I being a female, I discuss about my rights or my needs, or my duties, sorry, my rights and my things, or my needs, I should also discuss about the disposal method, or how can we go for protecting our environment, because we are going to live on the same earth. And if we don't want this pandemics to rise more, this global warming to rise more, we being the female can contribute a lot. And when there is a wave of feminism, I think we should grab that wave and try minimal to damage our atmosphere and our environment, okay. But why is the menstrual disposal a big issue? So it is a big issue because of the cultural taboo it has. Now I just want to give you some brief about it. uh, there are people, or there are societies who believe that uh, menstrual blood is used for witchcraft. It is used for black magic, and that a woman should never should never wash herself when people are awake. So in many cultures, they what they do is they will not change the pad throughout. Only at night they will change it when everyone is sleeping, so that the blood shall not be used for any black magics or witchcrafts. So here we need the awareness of the society that menstruation or menstrual blood is just a process. It's just a normal blood, and there is nothing like a witchcraft activity going on with that. Okay, other people, other cultures, they think that when a female is menstruating, she's dirty or she's untouchable, and that's why they ask her to sleep outside the house, okay. And she's not allowed to use any of the different ways to dispose of. They also believe that whenever you're disposing your products, no one should come to know about it. So what do females do? If I have to if I have to take care of the waste which is produced by me in such a way that no one can should come to know, then I will throw it somewhere else, okay, or throw it in the garbage, or we generally dispose it with our domestic waste. So what happen, why do we do that? Because we are, it has been considered that disposal of these things, or disposing these things in presence of your family members is not a good thing. No one should come to know that you're menstruating, or no one should come to know that you are using sanitary pads, okay. And that's why you wrap it and throw it. Many of the females, they do it, or we throw it, or we throw it into the dustbins. Or many of the females, like uneducated one or even educated, I have seen even the educated one, they would dispose it into the flush. Okay, so these things are not good, and they are being practiced because of this cultural limitation on a female, because of this cultural taboo of a female, that no, you should not tell anyone. Or so they will just go and throw it into a landfill. Now whenever you are throwing the sanitary napkins into the landfill or tampons into the landfill, it leads to soil infertility. Moreover, the rag pickers or the animals or the one who are coming into contact of this uh, unhygienic sanitary napkins, they get the infection. As I already said, they get the infection of hepatitis, or they can get the infection of staphylococcus or even E. Because that pad becomes a potential platform for the growth of microorganisms. So that should be avoided. So if I need to avoid it, what needs to be done? So the answer is proper disposal method. Dispose of your products as in biomedical waste. Means collect them, and there are various campaigns which are running across India as well as across the developing and underdeveloped countries. And India is still a developing country. I still remember I was in 5th standard when I was being taught that India is a developing country. And today into 2020, I still am hearing that India is a developing country. I don't know how long a country needs to develop itself. Okay, but yeah, we are still a developing country. So there are many campaigns which are running, like put a red dot campaign, or separate the segregate the waste and then throw it, or use the incinerators. So what do we mean by incinerator? Now there are two things. Should we throw the um, should we make a landfill or a pit and then dispose it, or should we burn? So the option is burn. So because if you fill it into the landfill, that means you're infertiling the soil. So if burning, then shall you go for open burning or shall you go for incineration? So it is like you have to go for incineration. Incineration. Okay, I'm sorry to spell the word correctly. Yeah. So the thing is, when we are going for this incineration, what happens at that point, right? So this is just a flow chart. I have given the due courtesy to the article from which I have taken the flow chart. So it is they have just shown different types of uh, sanitary products which are being used. Okay, and their disadvantages. So you can see, okay, when they are managed poorly, they can block the sewage system, they can clog the toilets, they can even cause the um, risk to the environment, in the form of, if they are been inhaled by the, if you burn them openly. So this polyethylene polypropylene, or the emollients which are used, or the cellulose which are used. Okay, they, when they are burned openly, they can create the carcinogenic effect. Okay, so carcinogenic effect means the people who are staying nearby, they can get a cancerous disease, they can get. Okay, because these, they produce the carcinogenic uh, fumes. Okay, if you directly throw them and they go and stuck into the water bodies, then the fishes or the water animals can eat it. Or if you are throwing it into the domestic waste, the rug pickers, when pick them, they generally pick it with their uh, uncovered hand. I mean, they don't wear the gloves to pick it, they would generally pick it like that. Okay, and that the waste collectors or the rug pickers can get infected due to this unhygienic menstrual waste disposed. Okay, so the best way is to use an incinerator. So there are different types of incinerators which are coming, and I'm surprised to see that many village females, they have taken an initiative to make the wooden incinerators or the clay incinerators. So what do they do is, uh, there are certain villages in Uttar Pradesh, or even in those areas, even in Gujarat, we have certain villages where the females, they have developed their own mud incinerator or clay incinerator, and then they dispose of. They would collect the menstrual waste from their surrounding, and they will incinerate it. So the fumes which are being formed, or the fumes will not come out. The uh, the sanitary napkin will burn into the into ashes, and then those ashes they throw out. Okay, so that is a good way of disposing. Okay, that is a good way of maintaining your hygiene as well as hygiene of the environment. So yeah, this is all about my today's short topic on evolution of menstrual hygiene. To revise everything, I would simply say that if you are a female, please do take care of these things, because your hygiene is important. And once you know that how to maintain your personal hygiene, please take care of these things as well, how to dispose. Because that is, if I have to give you certain figures or statistics which can blow your mind, then for that I have that almost, as I said, a female in her reproductive age group, she can form almost 120 kilograms of menstrual waste. Okay, and every month almost 353 million, okay, females, they are producing the menstrual waste. So you can just use the mathematics. These are the statistics of India only. If 353 million female are menstruating every month, and one female can produce 150 120 kilograms of menstrual waste throughout her life cycle, then throughout her reproductive cycle, then you can sum up and can find that how major the disposal is an issue. Okay, and the disposal is an issue because this menstruation is considered to be a taboo. It is not a subject which has been openly discussed. Okay, I still find, if I have still seen the families in where the female is not allowed to, even today, even 2020 I'm talking about, not talking about 1990s. Even today the females are not allowed to touch places in their house. I completely respect the cultural belief behind it, but it's okay if you want to give her privacy, it's okay if you want according to your culture. But the thing which I want to emphasize is, at least educate the female of usage as well as proper disposal. Because more than usage, nowadays the disposal is a problem. The statistics, they are showing that females, they are shifting from clothes to sanitary napkins, but they still don't know how to dispose them. So it's my humble request, if we can really gather, and if we can work for this particular aspect, that how to maintain the hygiene. And hygiene, menstrual hygiene, if we again see, I guess now you will be able to connect with menstrual hygiene management in a proper way, that women and adolescent girls using a clean menstrual management material to absorb or collect blood that can be changed in privacy, often that's necessary for the duration of menstruation period, using soap and water for washing the body as required, and having access to facilities to dispose of the used material, menstrual management material. So we need to use a proper management material. Moreover, we need to dispose them of. So it's my humble request to all the females who have attended the webinar, that please reconsider the menstrual product whatever you are using, and do take care of the disposal part as well. And for the male, uh, please implement this knowledge, and please share it with your daughters or with your sisters, your mothers or your wife, who or your friends, whoever you are coming in contact with, and help them out to break this taboo. Okay, if you will consider it as normal, then a female will consider it as normal. If you will give her a there are so many articles showing that in puberty many girls, adolescent girls, they go for committing suicides. Why do they commit suicides during puberty? Because of this reason. They just started menstruation and they don't then they soil their clothes, and there is humiliation from the society, and they commit suicide. Or during puberty there are so many changes that a female cannot understand what's going on with her body part, and that leads to depression and can affect and can lead to suicidal attempts. So being a male, it's your right, it's your duty to educate your females, and being female, it's your duty to take care of yourself as well as your environment. So now, thank you, Dr. Himanshu, for conducting this webinar. I mean, organizing it and speak and letting me speak on a topic which is still considered to be a cultural taboo. And as sir's vision is that we really want to fight a war against silent suffering, and with that we are coming up with different series of webinars as well. So the next webinar which I am going to have is on the oncovaginal rehab practitioner. For details, you can message me on 8005215003. And yeah, please let's be together and work against this silent suffering as well, and let us unite and support each other in this war. So if there are any questions, I can address those questions, Dr. Himanshu.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
done with
Thank you.
my
Yes.
presentation. I
Yeah.
hope that it was it added few some value to you, and you will look into this aspect with different angle.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, definitely. And thank you. Thanks a lot. And really, we are very grateful to you that you have spent the time to talk on the topic, and definitely the silent suffering. It is about the health, human health, and also the environment health. So you have talked about. I'm sorry, I'm not able to switch on my video because due to some network issue, I'm again on the top, on the roof. So video would be not available.
No
So
problem, no
we
problem.
are we are really grateful to the Dhara ma'am and Wow group of institution. It was around a month when we initiated this session of webinar and all. We had never thought that we can get a collaboration with such a great institution, Wow group of institution, and today we are with you. So we are really grateful, and we are feeling honored to have you with us here on the same platform. And that was the topic which was actually needed on the time, that we can spread some knowledge, some awareness, and definitely the myth buster session. It is a great myth buster session that can be leading to a improvement in the quality of life of everyone. So really
Thank you
grateful,
very
ma'am.
much.
And I think we should go for some question answer session. There are a few queries, and they are indicating the people are joining regularly. So can we go ahead for the question answer, ma'am?
Yeah, surely, surely. You can go to their question
Yeah,
answers.
ma'am. So should I narrate it for you, or you will read from the chat box?
Actually, I'm unable to see the chat box in
Okay,
my.
okay. No issue. I will narrate it for you. Don't worry.
Okay.
So the one question is, the where do we find the organic sanitary pads? Because generally we don't see it in the supermarkets. So the
Okay. So
availability
the
about the organic pads. Yeah.
yeah, so the organic century pads, they are not yet available so broadly into the supermarkets. But if you search on the Google, if you just write the organic century napkins, then there are many companies which are producing those types of napkins, the organic napkins. So instead of buying the plastic napkins, not available that easily into the supermarkets or superstores. So you can get those from online.
Okay, ma'am. Now, next question is, can the vaginal hygiene products be used after the menstruation? If yes, then
So
how many time?
yeah. So now the question is, what are the vaginal hygiene products and what do they do? before understanding that should we use it or not. So the vaginal hygiene products are the products which have a, a neutral pH, and they work to balance your vaginal pH. Now the thing is, those products should never be used transvaginally. They're only to clean the vestibular area, or the perineal, the inner vestibular area. The My personal suggestion is, like, vagina being an organ, that it cleans itself every day. So if you want to avoid those vaginal hygiene products, it is completely fine. Only but the thing is, you should regularly wash your perineum after every urination. So what my point here is, like, whenever a female is going for urination, there are chances that she might not complete the whole urination, or there are few drops of urine which gets sticked or accumulated to the pubic hair. Okay, if the female is not shaving or trimming the pubic hair, so at that point of time you need to really clean the pubic hair, the perineum area, post urination. So you can use clean water to do that. And if you are doing that, then you don't have to regularly use the vaginal hygiene product. Another thing is, go for proper perineal wash post intercourse or pre intercourse. In either ways, pre intercourse to prevent the infection spread to the partner, post intercourse to prevent the infection spread to you, as well as to clean that area. Okay. So yeah, if you still, if you want to use the vaginal hygiene product, you can use them once or twice a day. Don't overuse it, because they can really irritate your flora. Once or twice a day, when you go for bath, you can use those. And similarly, clean from front to back, and don't clean over your inside your vagina or over your vestibular area, because that are very sensitive areas. So my advice is, if you are cleaning your perineum post after every time you urinate, then you really don't need to use such vaginal hygiene products.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for a kind elaboration. And there is another question. Uh, During postpartum period, which kind of the products should be used by a woman?
So during postpartum, immediately postpartum period, when there is lochia coming, I mean, if you have undergone the vaginal delivery, and if you are having excessive during for the initial week, you might have bleeding. So at that point of time, you have the sentry panties which are coming. Now again, those sentry panties, right now they are not available into the organic form, but if you get the organic, you can use those. But immediately post delivery, at least for the time of your puparium phase, don't go for invasive. If you have an episio, don't go for usage of a tampon or menstrual cup if you have an episiotomy or perineal tear, because it would delay your healing. So at that point of you can use the sanitary panties which are coming.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am. There is one more. Yeah. So, is there any backflow when cups are used? Backflow of blood
No,
while using the
there
vaginal
is no
cups?
such backflow. The evidences of black backflow is very less, but because they would just collect the blood inside the menstrual cup, and the cup fits near your cervix, so you don't have to enter cups will not get beyond your cervix. They will just go and settle down at the cervix, and they will collect the fluid there. So the evidences for backflow or evidences for infections of the from the cup are very less.
Okay. Ma'am, there is one question from the physiology point of view actually. Does
Yes.
menstruation leads to changes in the eosinophil counts?
Menstruation in certain females, they do change the eosinophil counts, but I have yet not come across uh, those types of one. But yeah, they during ovulatory period, the eosinophil counts might alter, because at that time many females, they have the allergic reactions. They get prone to allergies, and during menstruation also they get prone to allergies. So allergies do happen because of increased eosinophilic count. But how prevalent or how positively correlated it is, that I really need to get back on it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for the such a kind and great elaboration on the topic. And we have almost done with the question answer session, and we also get a great feedback on the session. It was a wonderful presentation, wonderful PPT, even wonderful teaching by you. So we are really grateful to you, ma'am, that you have spared the time. And it was an awesome session. I would say yes, hats off to you. And to the head sir, please convey my regards to the head sir also, that they agreed for this collaboration, and just because of them and you, it was possible that we can make it. So really thankful to you, ma'am. And it would be a matter of pleasure to know that I would like to tell you also that in our session we usually have many dignitaries present over here from around the globe. There are many senior physiotherapists who are regularly joining us in our webinar series. Dr. Amita Anup Sharma ma'am from the Saudi Arabia, she joins us regularly, and Dr. Kalpana Jutsi ma'am from the Jamia Amdar, she is the professor there. She joins us regularly. Dr. Jitendra Munjal, he is a senior physiotherapist in the North DMC Medical College. Dr. Punamarthi from SRM University, Chennai, and various other. Dr. Jeban Danielson from the Choithram Medical College, Indore. So we are really grateful to you, all the senior faculty members, teachers who are present over here to spare your time. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks, ma'am, that you have given us so much great learning today to us. And there is one more information at the last, that tomorrow again we have a session on the breast cancer, and it is titled as Breast Cancer Symposium. So it would be at 4 p.m. We'll meet with the surgical oncologist. We'll discuss about the breast carcinoma, its introduction to medical management and surgical management. And at 9 p.m. on the tomorrow also, we'll get a rehabilitation point of view of the breast cancer management. So it was a matter of indeed pleasure for us. We get a great response.
Thank you, Dr. Himanshu Sharma.
Yes.
I would actually like to thank Dr. Hiddesai sir for giving me an opportunity to join his team and to work with a vision of working against the silent suffering. So I hope that you all will make it your vision and do a lot in this field, which is very much needed. You can really join us and really help us for the war against silent suffering.
Definitely, ma'am, definitely. And we would be, I think everyone would be proud to be a part of your campaign against the silent suffering, and we'll definitely one day will work on it. And thank you, ma'am. Thanks to be with you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. And for last, I would like to say sorry to everyone, because there was some error occur in the YouTube live. So it till the mid session it was going smoothly, but after that it has been disconnected due to some network issue. But I assure you, till either tonight or tomorrow, I'll update the whole video with the ma'am on the YouTube live, though you can again see it. Thank you, ma'am. Vera ma'am, thanks a lot for sparing your time, and thanks to all of the participants. Thanks a lot.
Very much.
Stay safe, stay tuned. We'll meet again tomorrow. Bye.